Russian troops are for several days now storming the town of Avdiivka, which is just on the outskirts of Donetsk. That's why it's so important for the Russian troops. And basically, Putin wants to show some success before bad winter and bad weather comes and the winter starts here. So they want to make some advance. The progress is very slow, and the Ukrainian troops are very well dug in around Avdiivka. So the Russians will probably fail with their attempts.
Ukraine, the Odessa region has continued to come under frequent Russian missile and drone attacks. On a visit to the Black Sea port, President Zelensky and the Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte promised to improve Ukraine's air defences and increase the security of a humanitarian corridor for grain exports. Well, Russian and Ukrainian forces have been fighting fierce battles around the strategically important eastern Ukrainian town of Avdiivka after Moscow launched one of its biggest military offences in months. Let's speak to Maria Avdeeva, who is a journalist in Kyiv. Good morning, Maria.
Morning. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you. First of all, just bring us the very latest on the situation on the ground and the progress being made by Ukrainian forces.
Well, the Russian troops are for several days now storming the town of Avdiivka, which is just on the outskirts of Donetsk. That's why it's so important for the Russian troops. And basically, Putin wants to show some success before bad winter and bad weather comes and the winter starts here. So they want to make some advance. The progress is very slow, and the Ukrainian troops are very well dug in around Avdiivka. So the Russians will probably fail with their attempts. But what has happened is the daily and the nightly attacks happening all the time, and Russia puts everything it has on this little small town which is held by Ukrainian army. On the other hand, Russia continues its drone attacks on infrastructure, especially in the south, in the seaports around Danube River, and then there hasn't been a large missile attack for almost several weeks now. And the concern here is that Russia wants to strike really hard, as it did in previous autumn, to try to crush Ukrainian energy infrastructure before cold months set in. And that's why Ukraine is asking for more air defense, and the allies pledge that more air defense will come.
We've talked a lot on this programme over the months of the war in Ukraine about concerns about fatigue around the world in supporting Ukraine, the horrors that Ukrainians are living through every day. It's easier for the rest of the world to separate itself from that. How concerned are you, in light of what's happening in the Middle East right now, that the Ukrainian war could not become forgotten, but not be the focus of the world's eyes?
Well, that's the news cycle. So the attention to the war and the atrocities and awful things happening in Gaza and Israel are obvious. But then on the other hand, I've been looking through the Russian headlines just now, and Putin is very obviously, Putin and Russian propaganda trying to make advantage of this situation. I don't know if they are particularly fully involved, but they completely are using the situation in their advantage, and they try to distract attention from the war in Ukraine. So the several lines which are the most frequent in their news is that this is what has happened in the Middle East is because US policy there failed, and the other thing is that now West will supply all the weapons to Israel, and Russia can do whatever it wants in Ukraine because nobody is paying care anymore, which is untrue, because just yesterday Dutch Prime Minister was in Odessa promising more air defense help. Then there was another Ramstein meeting with the ministers of defense of the allies, and every country pledged more help, more military help to Ukraine. So that's not going to happen, but obviously that's what Putin wants to do and what's in the Russian mindset.
Maria, thank you for your time this morning. Good to speak to you.
Thank you for having me.
That is Maria Avdeeva, who is a journalist in Kyiv.